Jungle difference. Whether it's a salty summoner's remark after a frustrating loss, or a player hyping up themselves, or a teammate after a satisfying victory, we've all heard it thrown out at least once, and I hear it very often when I'm playing jungle myself. Anyway, hey summoners, my name is Nathan Ng, and in this video I'll be breaking down the answer to one of League's most frequent questions. Is it a jungle difference? I'll preface this by saying at the end of the day, this is a single opinion. Feel free to agree or disagree with it, but regardless of your view on it, I hope that this video stirs in some food for thought. Make sure you hit that sub button so you don't miss out on any future content like this, and let's get started. Of all 5 of League's roles, the jungle has the least structure. It's a bit like jazz. As a genre, jazz is associated with breaking established rules, its chaotic freeform, and unique expressiveness, and the jungle is a role that can be played in many different ways. It also pushes incredible responsibilities onto those brave enough to pursue it. Freedom of choice carries a beautiful, liberating connotation, but is it really something that we want? The paradox of choice creates a heavy burden. It creates indecisiveness and also makes it much more difficult to analyze. Rather than looking at black and white, you must also include many shades of gray in between. We're not saying the jungle role is sexy like 50 Shades of Grey, which I have not read, I promise. We're just saying that when reassessing one's own gameplay, it can be very easy to look at interactions during the laning phase and say something like, oh yeah, I lost that fight because I missed, or I managed my wave poorly, then I overextended. In either of these scenarios, the solutions are quite simple. Don't miss or manage your wave better next time. Let's think about things from the jungler's perspective. My top laner got dove and died at level 4, or I was invaded in my own jungle and died. In the former's case, there isn't one single solution to ensure that your top laner doesn't die at the end of the enemy's jungler's clear. Is their death the result of their own incompetence, or is it the direct result of your own jungle pathing? Should you have perceived the gank halfway through your clear and done something about it, or simply just let nature take its course? Even when deciding on this, you have to take into consideration, what if your top laner's matchup is so unwinnable that the dive is inevitable? But if you do decide to help out your top laner who will surely get dove in a few minutes, your bot lane that's so much more important to winning the game is now left on their own. All of this is just a small taste of what it's like trying to become a better jungler. Also, if you want to be that jungle difference that wins your team the game and not lose them the game, well, hit up a coach at ProGuides.com. Our staff is trained and great at what they do. Don't play jungle? No problem. We have players that specialize in every role and champion, so feel free to check them out. Now, let's get back into the video. In the early game, no other role consistently gets the opportunity to affect all 4 of their teammates' performances. Once a jungler falls behind, it adversely affects their entire team. It's harder to control vision, all laners need to play safer, and receiving ganks are also riskier. In cases where the enemy jungler has the information or hard read, you're suddenly put into a fight with even numbers but less firepower. It goes without saying that a jungler's impact on the game is one of the most apparent out of any role. They can single-handedly dismantle an entire lane, turn around what looks like a completely lost matchup, or even make that clutch Baron seal that gets their whole team back into the game. No matter what role somebody plays, the combination of their microplay, aka mechanics, as well as their macroplay, aka decision-making, affect their performance. In the same way certain exercises strain corresponding muscles, each role in League challenges players in different ways. Of course, a player that mains Blitzcrank or Leona probably lacks the precise movements their bot lane partners bring, as winning the game is often decided by dodging lethal abilities. In contrast, a support player's ability to hit crucial skills is where they put in the time to refine their craft. Junglers, whether actively or subconsciously, have honed their ability to impact the flow of the game. An aggressive player can speed up games by fitting in ganks every other minute, while a more defensive player can slow them down by providing vision control and also being present to protect their teammates. It's because this concept is so abstract that there's a night and day difference between proactive junglers and those who are just trying to get by. The impact a power farming Shyvana has as opposed to a Xin Zhao that's ganked all 3 lanes by the 4-minute mark is going to be substantially different. It's because of a jungler's importance that players are often found raging at their own jungler when they make the wrong play, don't gank the right lanes, or commit whatever else that they view as a mistake. Although they may not always have the mental capacity to correctly judge whether it's their jungler's fault or not, they do have one thing right: they acknowledge directly or subconsciously the importance of a jungler. Moving on to the next point, let's talk about Baxter Gaming. The majority of gamers hate the idea of backseat gaming. When a teammate's understanding of the game clashes with their junglers, things get messy, and more often than not, they end with defeat. They might feel the need to micromanage and tell their jungler how to play the game. Before moving forward, let me ask you our question of the day. Do you prefer teammates with better mechanics or who are better at communicating? While those games are rare, I typically find that my teammates play better when no one is flaming and players are actually giving good information to each other. Let me know your answers in the comments down below, and let's get back into the video. Being an excellent jungler not only requires a lot of knowledge, it requires in many ways, shapes, and forms mental fortitude. The ability to filter out all the bad misinformation communicated, understanding when to trust your own decisions, conversely when to trust a teammate, alongside all the prerequisite knowledge required to even pilot the role to begin with, is a heavy burden. It's tough, there's always going to be someone on the team crying for a gank, but a player might see a different opportunity elsewhere. The hardest part of all of this is that you can make an objectively correct decision, but if your teammates are unhappy with the results and how it affects them individually, they could decide to rage quit on you. To add another layer of difficulty, everyone is human and junglers are gonna make mistakes as well. Making mistakes in any role can definitely bring the rage out of teammates. This also blurs the line between a teammate that rages because you're not listening to them, or one that's dissatisfied with poor performance. This makes improving in what's objectively a complex role even more difficult. So how do we even track improvement though? I'm gonna give my hot take and say that rank isn't an accurate representation of your skill. Does being a higher rank truly reflect your progress as a player? I mean, at the end of the day, it's a snapshot of your current ranking, and it could actually be anything from your worst performance after a lengthy loss streak resulting from tilt. It could also be a string of lucky games where the enemy team had griefers, or yours had smurfs along the way. Similar to various education systems that have failed us, an individual is rewarded for the final result, a value displayed on a screen. It's so easy to be fixated on this rather meaningless symbol, and it's easy to get lost and find shortcuts to get good end results instead of actually growing. One piece of advice given out is to one-trick a champion to climb. This encourages you to learn the ins and outs of a champion and master them. A one-trick typically knows a lot about their champion, their specific mechanics, and also has a solid understanding of how to play certain matchups. However, if any of us heard that a jungler wanted to one-trick a jungle root, I promise you on frame 1, most of us would stare questionably. The thing is that it might work. Climbing out of Iron, a player can probably lock in Xin Zhao and gank top or bottom after taking red buff every single game for a consistent win. When they try to navigate their way through Iron, they utilize this cheesy opener game after game, grinding until they finally taste the fruits of their labor, Bronze 4. Up until a certain threshold, it's certainly viable. However, once that threshold is met, enemy players play safer, or they can get smart and ward early to avoid cheesy and common level 2 ganks. With the revolutionizing strategy foiled, this hypothetical jungler is left confused and sitting in the brush, waiting for an opportunity that will never come. Thus, playing one-dimensionally is often frowned upon when you're a jungler. But you know, if you do use this tactic a lot, you could probably put it in the back of your arsenal for a viable strategy in some games, but you just can't do it all the time. Laners, on the other hand, can often get away with certain openers. Pushing for a level 2 power spike for an all-in, trying to freeze the lane for a jungle gank, or even sitting in a brush to sucker punch the enemy laner after they leash are all things that can come with little to no risk. The counterplay to these measures still create an advantage for the aggressor. They force an enemy to adapt or call their junglers for assistance. As a result, it leads to consistent climbing when executed well. These strategies also usually fall into the category of good fundamentals. After all, there are countless videos out there talking about pushing level 2 for a power spike. For junglers, what works in one game will often not work in another. The results aren't always tied to a player's improvement. I'm not gonna bore you by reading too far into it, but especially in professional play, the impact of a great jungler brings is both undeniable and massive. Out of the 2021 World Finals 5-game series, every game's first blood involved either jungler. To be fair, games 1 and 5 weren't the direct results of each team's jungler, but for games 2, 3, and 4, it's certainly acceptable to say that it was. One counter argument to this point that I'm bringing up is that professional players are more risk adverse, so they don't really make a play without them there. But even if that's the case, I think it only further suggests how important a great jungler is. So to wrap things up, is it a jungle difference? I say yes, it absolutely is. Now, is it reason to flame your junglers in solo queue? Definitely not. Not every game is lost entirely by the jungler, but I do think it's the role where skill disparities are the clearest and also the most exploitable. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I really want to know what you guys think about it in the comments down below. Also, make sure you check out the description for a link to join our Discord. I'd love to see you guys all there. And until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.